first of all, welcome again to another night, another series of It's Your Life. As you know, It's Your Life has started on the 1st of April, and every single night I have amazing speakers here on the call with me who are giving you some insights of what they know, insights of their learnings, and insights of how to cope with a lot of things that matter to us at the moment. A lot of times we think when we are at home now that, oh my God, what's happening outside? And a lot of people are totally focused on what's happening in the outside world. Today, we will look inward. Today, we will look at what is inside of us. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mona Abdurrahim Santel, and I'm the owner of Mind Your Power, and that's what it should be about. It is your power, the inner power that you have that so many people give away. Well, one of these amazing speakers who is with us today is Rod Kelly, and I am very happy to have Rod with us on the call tonight, because if there is one person who can really touch the what we are, because we're not only who we think we are, we're much more. There is more energy, etc. And if there's one person who understands what the aura really means, it is Rod Kelly. Rod is a board-certified hypnotist, but he's also a spiritual healer. He has a story to share of how he healed himself, how he, with a very simple technique and very fast technique, managed to heal the aura. And, you know, a lot of people speak about aura, but probably don't really know what it is. So tonight, let's all welcome Rod Kelly and let him explain to us, let us understand what is the aura and how can we heal it. Rod, I'm so happy that you're with us on the call tonight. I forgot to mention, you have written 4 or 5 books, Rod?
I am currently on my 5th book.
On your 5th.
The first book was a book that was all about my connecting with my own spiritual guide, and to do that, I had actually it was after a really long period of time where I was battling major medical conditions, and probably the most severe was I had an unstoppable blood clotting condition, and I spent lots of time in the hospital and being treated for blood clots, and I've had pulmonary embolisms, and one of them put me on the other side for 27 minutes, and but at the end of that period, I realized that the person I thought I was my entire life was absolutely ludicrous. It wasn't even close to who I was. I had an image of me that was based on what other people's images of me was. And it couldn't be farther from the truth. And through that 27-minute period, I understood who I was, but more importantly, I was able to look at life through a whole different perspective. And like we had just mentioned a little bit earlier, Mona, that most people look at the complexities of life and they really focus on them, and that's all they fixate on. And then they have a perfect excuse not to understand life. But that experience gave me the gift of being able to look at life through a very simplistic perspective, looking for simplicity in life. And whatever we look for, we're going to find. It can't work any other way. We always know the answer. We always know what we should be doing, because we have this thing called instincts. We have this thing called intuition and insights. And they come from our higher self. So the way I learned all these wonderful things is the first book I was saying, I moved up to Canada and lived in the middle of the wilderness. And before long, I was living on a reservation, Native American reservation, and I was taught by one of the Canada's most leading spiritual elders how to connect to my higher self. And through that, instinctively, I learned this simple exercise that militaries from around the world all do it. It's called standing at attention. But then I took a giant step forward and I was able to bring in a visualization in with it. And what it really came down to is I learned how to tap into the magnetic energy that surrounds the earth and take control of it and draw it into my body and draw it from the top of my head all the way down to my lower back. Then taking command of the gravitational energy of Mother Earth and working with that and drawing that up and letting the two energies meet. And when the two energies meet, it has the same exact reaction as lightning. You're tapping into the positive energy from the sky and the negative energy from the earth. And when the two of them come together, there is an explosion, but it's an invisible explosion, and it blows your aura out to its absolute perfect state. Now, your aura is the master control system for all the energy systems in the entire body. And I know that Eastern medicine for countless years has been working with the chakra system. But I also became really familiar with laws of physics. And when you're working with the chakras, let's say someone's working on your heart chakra. Well, there's a law in physics that states for every action, there is an equal but opposite reaction because nature demands balance. The problem is they fix one chakra and it kicks another one out. And they fix that one and it kicks another one out. And it's kind of like trying to tune an organ with a pitch pipe and a pair of pliers. It just can't be done effectively. You see, all the chakras are connected to the aura because the aura is the master control system for all the chakras. And when the aura is at its optimum level, literally every single chakra in your body becomes not only open, but super open. And every single energy system in your body flows without any obstruction whatsoever. And one of the things I learned about working with the aura is that the aura really is your spirit. It's your spirit. And because the aura is so much larger than the body, we're not part of the aura. We're not part of the aura. The aura is our spirit. We are infinitely more spirit than we are flesh and blood. We think that spirit is part of us. No, spirit is not part of us. We are part of spirit. And whatever spirit wants you to achieve becomes second nature. And for some reason, for the past 20 years, I have attracted people with this wonderful disease called cancer. And I'm going to tell you, it is a lot more wonderful than you could ever possibly imagine. And somebody told me that's absolutely ludicrous. Cancer is deadly. Well, yeah. And the reason it is going back 500 years, back to the year of 1623. Galileo made a statement that everything in nature ever existed, ever did exist, does exist, or will exist, had to have a purpose for existing. Because without purpose, nothing can exist. Without purpose, nothing can exist. So when we look at disease and illness, if everything in the entire universe had to have a purpose for existing, doesn't that mean that so wouldn't disease and illness? For me, cancer is the most easiest one to work with because it's a solid mass.
Mm-hmm.
No other disease has a solid mass. So because it has a single point, that's where you direct all this positive energy, all this light, all this knowledge.
Yeah.
And that aura is nothing more than an orb of absolute perfect white light. And what gives the aura its colors is whichever chakra is dominant. The wonderful thing about hypnosis is it works with the subconscious mind, where two things are present. First of all, subconscious mind has no concept of time. Time does not exist in the subconscious mind. And the second thing is your subconscious mind is incapable of forgetting anything. I can teach people how to make dramatic changes in their life by just imprinting this new information into the subconscious mind. And when you think about it, it all seems simple. It is simple because we are working with nature. But I went through 7 years of really severe medical problems where I was in the hospital almost as much as I was out. And I've had numerous surgeries. I developed a blood clotting condition and they couldn't stop it. I've seen the top neurologist in the world. He was at Harvard's medical school, and he saw me and he scratched his head and he couldn't figure out what was causing it. But the bottom line was, after I had a massive stroke, I was told that really there's nothing more they can do. And I ended up going on a spiritual journey, moving up to Ontario and living in the middle of the wilderness. And through that, I eventually ended up living on a native reservation. And I was taken under the wings of a very prominent Cree elder that was really, he was infamous around all of Canada, in parts of Western United States. And he taught me how to connect to my higher self. And through that, I learned that the higher self is responsible for your instincts, your intuition, and your insights. And instinctively, I learned how to heal me. And the way I did it was I just learned this little posture and visualization exercise that really tapped me into the essence of my own higher self. But and that was, sheesh, that was 20 years ago. And I started working a lot more involved with teaching people how to learn what the purpose is behind their medical condition. And a wonderful event took place is I started being able to work with people and looking at an entire spectrum of all diseases and illness that were ever known by humanity, looking for commonalities with all of them. First one that came up, prominent. They all have a very high level of negative energy. They are the aspect of negative energy. Now, because of negative energy, doesn't it make sense that we need to start looking at the physics of disease and illness rather than the chemistry of it? Because bottom line is physics is the study of energy, and looking for ways to change that negative energy that created the disease and illness just makes total sense. And where this actually started leading me is this led me into becoming an amateur physicist, focusing, learning the laws of physics and how to apply them and how to use one law against another law to bring about change. And the most powerful law in physics is positive energy consumes negative energy. And when I first started studying it, I'm thinking, this can't be. This just can't be. You look around and you see all the negative garbage that's going on in our world. How can positive energy be stronger than that? Well, I learned that whenever you have a really perplexing question that you really can't come to understand, just before you go to sleep, you ask your highest self the answer. As long as you ask the question in a proper manner, spirit is powerless not to provide you with the answer. And typically, within 3 nights, you're going to have the answer to your question. And if you don't get it in that 3 nights, you've got to learn to ask it in a different way. And the way you need to learn to ask it is, if you provide me with the answer to the question, I will be of better service to humanity. Because as long as the petition you have, the prayer that you have, benefits others, not yourself, spirit is powerless not to grant it. And what it really came down to, learning the laws of physics and how to apply it, really became really important. And the law of positive energy consumes negative energy. You have to understand what the differences are. But what it really comes down to is that when you look at energy and comparing positive energy with negative energy, the easiest way to understand this is if you visualize a child's top and you push down that plunger, and the faster that top spins, the more stable it becomes. And when it starts slowing down, it begins to start wobbling. Well, with cancer, when that energy starts wobbling, that molecule, that cell of cancer, starts bumping into other cells, knocking the other cells off of their balance on it, and it just keeps on spreading. And this is how cancer spreads. So, my approach to this is, first of all, I teach people this simple 3-minute exercise. And if you go on my website, rodkelly.net, you're going to see there's actually a video on there that shows you exactly how this exercise goes. But all it really is you have to understand one powerful component of it. Your spinal column is your antenna for the universal energies. When you have a really good posture, all the energy flows without any obstructions. But when you've got a lousy posture, there's a kink, and you're not getting a good flow of energy, because energy flows in the path of least resistance. So when you've got a bad posture, your resistance is greater. So the energy can't flow. So it's teaching people, first of all, you have to have the best possible posture you can imagine. And if you stood up straight as you can, push your shoulder blades back, kick your hips forward, that is going to give you a really good posture. Now, closing your eyes and using your visual imagination, imagine a beam of light shining right down on the top of your head. And wait until you can, if you can't feel something, imagine it happening. But just imagine this beam of light really starting to warm up your skull. And wait until that beam of light penetrates through your skull and starts warming your mind up. And then focus your thoughts so where your skull meets your spinal column, draw all that energy to the very top of your spinal column. Don't rush it, but then start allowing that energy to expand. And the more it expands, the stronger it gets, the more the energy will be pushing down your spinal column. And allow that energy to go from disc to disc to disc, all the way down to the small of your back. And when the energy gets down to the small of your back, allow that energy to start spinning. And it's, if you're living in north of the equator, it's going to spin in a clockwise direction. If you're south of the equator, it's going to spin in the counterclockwise direction. But allow that energy to spin, and the more it spins, the stronger the pull becomes. Then imagine a light of equal intensity shining on the soles of both of your feet. And feel your feet starting to get warm. And allow that energy to intensify. And as it intensifies, it starts spreading the energy upwards. And it goes up to your ankles, and up to your knees, up to your hips. Finally, back to the same spot the other energy was, and let the two energies commingle. And what you have effectively achieved is you have tapped into the magnetic energy that surrounds the earth. And you took command of it. And you directed it all the way down to your lower back. Then you took command of the gravitational energy of Mother Earth. And you took command. And when the two energies come together, it has the identical reaction that lightning does on the earth. Because you're tapping into the positive energy of the sky and the negative energy of Mother Earth. And when two energies come together, there is an explosion, and it blows your aura out to its maximum state. And the aura is the master control system for all the energy systems in your entire body. In the instant the two energies come together, your entire chakra system becomes super open. That was the beginning of my understandings of working with the aura. That was the very beginning of it. But then I had to really understand what the aura truly is. 50 years ago, I watched a TV show that came on after The Tonight Show with Tom Snyder. It was called Tomorrow. And Tom Snyder was noted for having some really offbeat guests on his show. And this one night, 50 years ago, he had a guest on from a very prominent scientific organization. And the man made a statement that I never, ever, ever forgot. Humanity will never learn how to heal disease and illness until they learn how to heal the aura. Let me repeat that. Humanity will never be able to learn how to heal disease and illness until they learn how to heal the aura. "30 years later, I mastered it and I learned how to heal it. But understanding what the aura is, the aura is your spirit. Now, realizing that your aura is your spirit, that means that your spirit is greater than your physical presence. Your aura is outside your body, right? Typically, your aura will be a foot to 3 feet from your body. That means that your spirit is larger than your physical presence. And when you start tapping into the power of your own spirit, what you are tapping into is you're tapping into that light body that surrounds you. And your aura really is an orb of absolute perfect white light. And what gives the aura its colors is whichever chakra is dominant. It's going to change the color of your aura. But now you look at what really is light. In the beginning, there was only thought, but thought, all it had was potential. All thought had was potential. It needed a vehicle to carry it forth. And light was created. And light became the source of knowledge. To be enlightened is to learn. To be enlightened is to learn. So what it really comes down to is this orb of perfect white light surrounds you. There's another way to describe it. That orb of light that surrounds us is the orb of unconditional love that the Creator had for us. And that is what our spirit is. Our spirit is the absolute epitome of unconditional love. Some of the other issues that go into disease and illness is, for an awful lot of people, it's low self-esteem. Low self-esteem can be corrected so easily by allowing people to connect to their aura. Because that aura is God's way of providing us with the protection against all the negativity in our world. That orb of unconditional love has the powers and ability to heal. The greatest healer in the world is unconditional love. When we involve our higher self, our spirit, through our aura, and understanding that it is your aura, you have the abilities to heal anything in your body, because the aura is the epitome of positive energy. And all you need to do is just focus your thoughts on the absolute source of your medical condition, the purpose of your medical condition. Because once again, Galileo made that statement: everything that ever did exist, does exist, or will exist had to have a purpose for existing. And one of the exercises I do routinely is I will, through hypnosis, I will actually have the client get reconnected with your higher self. Because, first of all, the higher self resides in your subconscious mind, so it has the two qualities. First of all, time doesn't exist. The second thing, it can't forget anything. So it is going to know exactly and precisely what caused your problem. But because it knows it so intimately well, it also knows its resolution. And without purpose, nothing can exist. Without purpose, nothing can exist. We have powers and ability to overcome anything that happens to our bodies, with the exception of accidents. But we can definitely take control over how our bodies deal with those accidents, and how our bodies deal with any type of medical condition that's possible. The first person I taught this technique to was a man with Parkinson's disease. The man was in his early 60s. But he was at a point where he was contemplating suicide. I taught him how to stand at attention and how to draw this energy through the top of his head, move it down his spine, and then draw the energy from the earth into his feet and move the two energies together. And I told him, the more often you do this, the greater the abilities are going to become for you managing this condition. He went home, and I called him up 3 weeks later. And I asked him, I said, "How you doing with the exercise?" He says, "I do it every chance I get." And I says, "And how's it doing?" He says, "Rod, I don't even recognize my tremors anymore." He totally was overcoming the tremors that created his Parkinson's disease. Second person I worked with was a lady that was referred to me by the nurse practitioner, and the lady had a kidney problem. She didn't want to do dialysis, so she came to me. I taught her this technique. In 3 weeks, her kidneys were functioning 42% better. And then my first cancer patient was a man that I really adored. He was my father-in-law. My father-in-law was the most worrisome person I'd ever met in my whole life. He worried about absolutely ludicrous things. He wouldn't have matches in the house because a mouse might come and bite the head of the match and burn the house down. But I worked with him once a week for 3 months. And he was diagnosed before with prostate cancer. Every month I'd go there and I'd do an energy treatment on him. I'd coach him. 3 months, we go in for the final evaluation, and they couldn't find the cancer. It was gone. What it really comes down to is we were created absolutely perfect. And what that really boils down to is, because we're perfect doesn't wouldn't that indicate that we would have the ability to resolve any issues that we could ever possibly have? And when I say we are created perfect, we are created absolutely, totally perfect. And what made us perfect is all of our imperfections. Throughout the history of humanity, there has never been one single individual born that was exactly like you. Not one in the thousands of years and billions and trillions of people that were born. There's never been a single person exactly like you. And there never will be in the future. You are the Creator's perfection. And once you accept that single statement, you are the Creator's idea of perfection, where can this thing called low self-esteem ever possibly have any substance to it? And I had an experience, a spiritual experience, where the whole self-esteem issue had been laid out right in front of me. When we are in between lives, we are in a dimension where all there is unconditional love. We have no physical presence, so there's no physical needs. All there is unconditional love, but yet our spirit chooses to come back into this dimension. And what happens is somewhere between the ages of 2 to 3, maybe even earlier, the spirit of that child starts looking around and saying, where's all this unconditional love I'm so accustomed to? I see my mommy and daddy fighting. I see my sister and brothers fighting. I see people all over hating each other. Oh, I must no longer be worthy. That's the onset of low self-esteem. And the way it is resolved is just remind them that that orb of light around you, it's God's protection from all the negative forces in life. That orb of perfect white light, that orb of unconditional love resolves that problem, that whole quagmire of negative issues. You were created absolutely perfect. And what made you perfect were all of your little imperfections. You have the powers and abilities and everything you need to heal yourself when you just start looking at who you truly are. And all the seemingly negative events in your life are there for purpose. All the negative events in your life have a purpose. And what it really comes down to, the meaning of life, is it's the school that never closes. It's the class that never ends. And the seemingly negative events that come into your life come into your life in the form of teachers. The instant you learn what the message, what the lesson was behind that negative event. It's no longer a negative because it served as a lesson, and your subconscious mind can't forget it. The only negativity that we have in life is lessons that we do not learn from. And the longer that issue keeps on coming back and we still don't learn, the severity every time it comes back, it's going to increase, and especially with cancer. And with cancer, it gets to a point where God's saying, hey, you either learn this lesson or we're going to recall you and you got to go through this all over again. Spend time contemplating what could you possibly be learning out of this negative event that you couldn't have learned any other way. And I gave you a little hint. It is always about angelic qualities.
So Rod, I do have another question here for you, because you were talking about the aura and then you were talking about the higher self, and it seemed to me that you put both as equal, like as if.
Exactly. Precisely. Your aura is your spirit. Your aura is that orb of unconditional love that surrounds you to protect you and guide you. And your higher self, your spirit, speaks to you through your instincts, your intuition, and your insights to guide you through life so that you get where you need to be in the shortest amount of time. There is no such thing as a bad decision or wrong decision. There's only decisions of more or less consequence. And the purpose of your instinct is to guide you to the path of least consequence. So you get to where you need to be in the shortest period of time. Well, this exercise takes 3 to 5 minutes. And if somebody doesn't have any medical issues, I recommend they do it once a day. If they have medical issues, the more frequently you do it, the stronger it gets. But you have to understand something about your personality. It's yours. It's nobody else's. There's no flaws in being an empath. It just means that you have gone through enough lifetimes where you learned a ton about being caring about others. You are very close to being a recognizable angel. You know the only difference between angels and you is the angel recognizes and accepts who it is, where you don't. You are the manifestation of a whole collection of angelic qualities. And I've often given what I call the angel test. And I ask people, first of all, do you believe in angels? And I don't really care if you do or not. But if you don't, I just say, imagine that they were real. How tall would the angel be? What would it look like? Would it be male or female? What would you notice about its eyes, posture, facial expressions? If the angel was walking through the forest and saw a brand spanking new fawn that had just been born, what would it feel? If it walked through a hospital and came into the nursery and saw an entire room filled with brand spanking new babies, what would it feel? If it was walking down the city street and saw a homeless person huddled over a grate trying to capture the heat so it didn't freeze, what would you feel? If you're walking through a playground and saw a whole playground of kids having a ball, what would you feel? What would you feel if you saw two kids picking on a smaller child? If you're driving on the highway and saw a small animal had just been run over by a car, what would it feel? And I go through this whole long, drawn out description, and then I ask an important question. What of these feelings wouldn't you have felt? And there's a simple question. If it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it sure as hell ain't a giraffe. You are the possessor of angelic qualities. Embrace it. The only difference between an angel and you is the angel recognizes and accepts who it truly is. Exactly.
Really, really interesting concept. Now, another question. You said we should do it once a day, connecting the positive and the negative energy and then having that lighting. So the more we do it, what we are actually doing is allowing our aura to expand. And by expanding the aura, we're allowing us to connect to ourself more. Is that, did I understand it?
Exactly and precisely, Mona. The more often you do it, the greater it becomes. And you see, the outside influences around us are always chomping at that. They're always chomping at your aura. So you need to have a continual flow to bring that aura to maintain that perfect stability.
Mm.
And the more often you do it, the greater it becomes. And what's really, really interesting is that when you do the exercise, you are going to feel things that are totally unique.
Mhm.
Sometimes people feel like they're out in outer space. Sometimes they'll feel that they're spinning around. Each and every time you do it, you're going to get different feelings because what it's also doing is it's bringing your vibrational levels up to a much higher level. And the higher your vibrational level, the more knowledge you can extrapolate from the universe. Once a week, I will spend 10 minutes holding this exercise. And the things that I resolve in that 10 minutes are mind-boggling. The answers to questions that are well beyond my normal capacity for understanding, boom, just pop in there. Because what it's doing is your spirit is also your connection to the Creator's heart.
Mhm.
Your spirit is direct link to God itself. And anything that God has the ability to do, so do you. There is a passage in the Bible that says we're created in God's own image. Biblical scholars have proven that was a misquote. The actual quote was, you are created into God's own image. You're not a mere reflection of God, you're an integral part of God. And without you, God cannot exist. And you can't exist without God. Your powers and abilities are limited only by your own mind. It's the only limits you will ever have. I do the exercise for 3 to 5 minutes every day,
Okay.
without fail.
Okay.
But once a week, I make a point and I'm going to do it for 10 minutes because I need more knowledge. It's the only way I can learn how to help other people heal. Let me explain that quite simply. First of all, you have to accept that your higher self is watching over you always. And your higher self, because it's a spirit, in the spirit realm, there is nothing but truth. It is only absolute truth in the spirit realm. So when you ask, you say prayer. A lot of us pray. We pray to God, right? Well, it's much easier if you just tap into your own spirit, because your spirit is part of you. It's an integral part of you. So you ask yourself just before you go to bed, whatever question you have, whatever question, whatever issue is really bothering you, and you ask them for a simple solution. And as long as you ask the question with the intention of, if you provide me with the answer to this, I can be a better humanity, better to help humanity. You can't ask for selfish things. You can't. They will not. Doesn't even compute. But whatever you ask, as long as it's asked so that you can be a better service to humanity, spirit is powerless not to grant it. It's not going to come the way you think it would, and it's not going to come in perhaps your concept of timing, because spirit's timing is absolute perfect timing, where everything meshes perfectly together. When I was working with my native teacher and I was ready to go off on my own, my teacher told me, he says, Rod, two things you got to understand. He says, first of all, the journey you are on is going to take you 10 years to get there. And I looked at him and I smiled and I said, Archie, I'm a quick study. He said, bullshit. It's going to take you 10 years. You know how long it's taken? 20. I'm a thick-headed Scotsman. Some things really don't resonate quickly. It took 20 years. But what it really comes down to, the more I understand, the more I realize that I don't know. And the reason I spend that 10 minutes is because I always want to increase my understandings. Because my whole life is geared around one thing, helping other people get through their issues so they can enjoy peace and harmony and discover the simplicity of life itself. Because life is simple when you learn to look at it from a different perspective. Stop looking for complexities. Because if you're looking for complexities, that's all you're ever going to find. And one of the things that I had mentioned earlier, the easiest way to resolve many of our quandaries that we go through is when you're trying to do something that you really can't grasp, ask yourself a simple question. What if the best friend I ever had my entire life was faced with the identical situation? What would I tell him to do? It takes the emotions out of decision making, and that's what screws us all up, is when the emotions get involved. But then once you answer that question, when the hard part comes, you got to take your own advice. We always know the answers to our problems. We always do. The question is, are we willing to listen to ourselves? And the other thing I just want to just touch basically on is understanding the intelligence of your higher self. Your higher self knows every single thing there ever was to know about you in most minute detail, but without any type of judgment. And it also has that same level of knowledge about every other lifetime you've ever experienced. It has the wisdom of maybe 50 to 100 lifetimes encapsulated right inside it. And yet, we think we're smarter than our instincts because we're intelligent beings. We use 6% of our brain's capacity, and that's a smart person. How smart can we really be? It's time to start becoming instinctive. Women have an advantage over men because women's intuition is a lot greater. That means that women are smarter than men are. That's not even a guesswork. But the bottom line is you have the capacity to resolve your own questions, to discover the simplicity of life, because you have to look at nature. And they never talk about the complexities of nature. It's always the simplicities of nature. Life is simple when you start looking for simplicity.
I wish we had more time. I wish we had another hour. Maybe we can do that again.
What you can do is if you have any questions, you can email me. I'm on Facebook. My email is rod@rodkelly.net. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you have. If you want to text me, have a video chat, whatever. I am always available. And now, when I can't leave my house, I'm always available.
Send an email to Rod or contact him, and he'll be more than happy. And the other thing that you can do is get maybe one of his books. Rod is the author of 4 books, and he's just in the process of writing the 5th one, which probably will also have a lot of that.
This is the book that I teach most of the things I talked about today in. This is if you can go on my website, rodkelly.net. Second page about the about me. Halfway down, you see a picture of my book. Click on the book. You can either get it in printed version or you can get it in a video or visual thing. And it's $5.95 for the virtual book and $17.95 for the printed book. And because I can't send it over to Europe without having horrific postal expenses, you're always better going through Amazon. Thank you very much for joining me. This was fun.
Well, thank you, Rod, very much for a lot of new insights. And I think that, yes, like Rala already said, most of us had another concept of the aura. And it's really interesting the way you put it. And, you know, it's a lot of food for thought now for us all to digest and to think about what you said. And you maybe do that exercise, that lightning exercise, bringing these energies together. I am very curious, maybe to hear what others feel when they do it, and I'm very curious to do it myself. So thank you to everybody who was on the call, and thank you, Rod, again, very, very, very much for today. Now, again, I want to ask everybody else who is on the call, if anyone wants to speak in this series, please send me an email to mona@mindyourpower.org. I will be more than happy to host anyone who has something positive to say, something to contribute, because You know, Rod said today, every single one is special and unique. And you said there is no other one like you. And I think everybody has something to contribute and to say. So if you do, please send me an email. Once again, Rod, big, big hug. Much love, unconditional love to you and to everybody else on the call.
I totally enjoyed being on your show, and I look forward to doing it again.